Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 RBC Heritage Data Dive Show. If you joined last night, you'll see that I have at least added a bit of a background, at least temporary. And if you haven't, or if you didn't watch last night, welcome to the new background. If you would, drop a comment in the video. Is this distracting? Do you like it? Let me know your general thoughts. I was not comfortable just having a blurry black background on the green screen, so I decided to use this. Let me know in the comments how you like it. But we're not here for that. We are here for everything RBC Heritage and to dig into the data, slice and dice it, and figure out if we can find a winner. So a couple of announcements here. First off, the week of the Mexico Open, the last week of April, the full schedule will be there, but it'll be different in the sense that it'll be a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday week as opposed to Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. I am leaving for a golf trip / vacation that Wednesday morning, so make sure you set your reminders that the DFS Tactics show for the Mexico Open will be on that Tuesday evening, not Wednesday. And then the second announcement is that I am going to start preparing for DFS baseball. I have been a baseball player all my life, still play, fan, but I'm looking forward to that. That's what part of the shenanigans and messing with the background of the camera is for. But again, looking forward to that. So that will probably start the week I get back from the golf vacation. So the first week of May, I tentatively plan to start that. So, be aware of any announcements that I'm making on social media and whatnot for that. So let's get through the intro. I just alluded to social media. There are links in the description of the videos, both on Twitch and on YouTube, to my social media. I posted some rather interesting research, or at least it was rather interesting to me, this, for a math nerd. So if you want to see a part of that and other things that I find throughout the week, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the description for my social media. That's also where I place my betting cards that I post every Wednesday night after the DFS Tactics show. All statistics tonight and every night are provided by FantasyNational.com. It's an amazing resource. It is well worth your investment. I say it every show, and I'm not obligated to. It is simply the best tool out there. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. It's going to make you a much better gambler, a much smarter DFS player. And then finally, we are live. Chat is open. Join me as we start to dig into everything RBC Heritage. Are you looking at any early wagers? Do you think there are any hangovers from the Masters? Who are your early pivots and fades and leans and whatnot? So we're here for all of that. Let's dig into the data for the 2022 RBC Heritage. And we start first with Wind Finder. I mentioned in last night's show that the wind can pick up at Harbor Town, and I went ahead and brought it up, and the forecast has changed even from lunch this afternoon. Let me bring up chat, get ready to go here. So earlier today, it looked like Thursday and Friday were going to be very, very hectic. Rain on, I believe, Wednesday evening. A lot of wind, and to be fair, Thursday has quite a bit of wind. Friday has died down quite a bit. There was a lot of yellow in the afternoon portion of Friday. That looks like it has come down a little bit. The rain forecast, again, according to Wind Finder, the rain, has been pushed to Saturday. Pretty much all day. Looks like it's a pretty decent amount of rain too. And then Sunday, this is what I was seeing for Friday. So it looks like they have pushed that forecast back into later portions of the weekend. So we'll definitely have to keep track of that throughout the week. We'll double check it again Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show. But I will probably look at some wind metrics here, just seeing that it is not going to be smooth sailing, at least by forecast, like Saturday is. So wanted to bring that up, make sure I had it open for you all, and explain why I'm going to look at some win metrics tonight. So we're going to close that. We're going to come to Fantasy National, and I've went ahead and preset this to the beginning of the calendar year. Now that we are in the middle of April, we're starting to get enough rounds where we can just go ahead and use the calendar year. You can see here Sahith Theegala most in the field with 39 rounds. Now there will be times that we'll have to add some months here or go back to a year or so, specifically for Pete Dye. Pete Dye courses aren't common at the beginning portion of the calendar year. So we'll definitely have to go back in time a little bit for that and other metrics. But I am going to start using just this now that we have quite a bit of data. And before I forget, I have seen one tournament or field change. Abraham Answer has withdrawn, and Joseph Bramlett takes his place as an alternate. So while Abraham Answer is still on this page in Fantasy National, he is correct and not in the final DraftKings page. And I will use the DraftKings page, obviously, for the DFS Tactics show. But I just like to use the field here as we're doing our research. So with that all out of the way, let's do a little bit of recap from last night. And we noticed or saw on the GCSAA tournament fact sheet that we're on Bermuda greens. And we had a little bit of discussion in the sense that I don't think we're going to use any speed filter. The past 5 years, it has alternated between being fast and being average. And before 2016, it was always average. So while the course has sped it up a little bit, I'm still not comfortable just putting fast Bermuda. So we're just going to look at Bermuda greens. So your top performers since the beginning of the calendar year on Bermuda greens. You have Martin Trainer, Kevin Kisner, Terrell Hatton, Cam Smith, Brian Gay, Sepp Straka, Brendan Todd, Chesson Hadley, Scott Stallings, Doc Redman, and Alex Noren. Probably no surprise here, especially with the focus on the calendar year. Cameron Smith, his 2 wins, the tournament champions and the players, both on Bermuda. Sepp Straka, his win at the Valspar on Bermuda. Terrell Hatton generally puts Bermuda well, same with Kevin Kisner. We looked, or at least I overlooked him last night. I was searching for him. He was right in front of my face. Billy Horschel, 14th. You don't have a lot of Masters players here in the top 10 or so, about half, which is surprising to me. I figured they would be a lot more common since the beginning of the tour or the beginning of the calendar year is predominantly Bermuda. But you have Kisner, Terrell Hatton, Cam Smith, Sepp Straka. So there's really only 4 in the top 10, which is a bit surprising to me. Then you come down into the top maybe 20. You add Billy Horschel, Tommy Fleetwood, Patrick Cantley, Shane Lowry. So really just a small handful of guys in the top 20, 7 or 8 from the Masters. So we'll see if there's a little bit of a hangover from that or whatnot. There's a quick look at the putting on Bermuda surfaces since the beginning of the calendar year. Something else we apparently we're going to look at bent too, even though it's been one tournament. Something else that we looked at is Pete Dye, and this is one of the filters where I'm going to have to add some months to it. So let's go back the last 12 months. I am actually going to custom date range this and put it at April the 19th. That way we don't include last year's RBC Heritage. We will look at that heavily later tonight in the Microsoft Excel portion where I have the color-coded spreadsheet and look at who has predominantly played well with their strokes gained total broken out across all the stats. So double checking here that the RBC isn't in there. So on Pete Dye courses since last year's RBC Heritage, Your top performers are Sepp Straka, Shane Lowry, Abraham Answer, who, remember, has withdrawn, so Corey Connors is now third, Cam Smith, Kevin Kisner, Kevin Streelman, Kramer Hickok, Sung Jae, Joaquin Neiman, and Russell Henley are your top 10. Let's see. Sung Jae, we dug into him a little bit last night. He generally plays Pete Dye courses well. His performance at the Amex was strong. Of course, the players, the TPC Sawgrass, Pete Dye designed Kiowa last year. So traditionally plays Pete Dye designs pretty well. Neiman the same. So here are your player, of course, Cameron Smith, winner of the players this year. So here are your top performers on Pete Dye designs. There's only 14 rounds going back to the last calendar year. I don't know if it would be prudent to go back 2 years. It just doesn't seem feasible. So that's why I've limited it to the last 12 months. The other thing we're going to look at, or at least in a review, is short courses. And I'm definitely going to come back and add the filter for this year, or alter it for this calendar season. And we have 16 rounds. Yeah, that's fine. It's just as many as the Pete Dye for a year. So your top performers on short courses, and those are defined in Fantasy National terms by less than 7,200 yards. So your top performers on short courses this calendar year, you've got Tom Hoagie, Russell Henley, Patrick Cantley, Shane Lowry, Denny McCarthy, Sepp Straka, Lonto Griffin, Jordan Spieth, Andrew Putnam, and Daniel Berger. So again, Hoagie, no surprise being number one. His win at the Pebble Beach short course. You've got some players who just have, looks like, one tournament. You have the Honda for Shane Lowry. Other players have quite a few rounds, 4 tournaments. So you got the Sony, the Amex, Pebble Beach, and the Honda. I imagine those are the 4 tournaments really that are available in the beginning part of the year that are short. I can't think of any that would have been there that nobody played, because the Corrales is long, Puerto Rico is long. I think that's it. So the most would be 16. So Denny McCarthy has made the cut in all 4 of those short course tournaments. Adam Svensson the same. JJ Spawn has made the cut in 3 of those 4. So interesting to see. And I think that's going to do it for in terms of review in kind of an umbrella stat kind of look. I'm going to take off the short course filter. Now that we looked at Windfinder, let's take a look at moderate and windy conditions. I've been adding the moderate to this. There just don't seem to be a whole lot of rounds that are deemed windy AF. So for example, I'll bring up the Masters here. Let's go, because I know Stuart Sink was in it. And we'll look at the Masters and see. Well, let's see. Full tournament factor. We don't have the wind yet. So I thought we would have. I apologize. So the Masters data is in Fantasy National. We just don't have the specifics yet to it. So my apologies for wasting 30 seconds of your all's time. Well, technically I waste about an hour, but you choose to watch me. So you can see here on the windy, there's only 12 rounds. I guess that'll have to do, because if we go back in much further, adding the moderate filter really brings in a whole lot of rounds. So in the rounds that are considered moderate or windy since the start of the calendar year, your top performers are Joaquin Neiman, Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Cameron Smith, Denny McCarthy, Cameron Tringali, Russell Henley, Brian Harmon, Camilo Villegas, and Sahith Tagala. So starting to see quite a bit of overlap here. Sung Jae, wind, Pete Dye, Cameron Smith, short courses. Yo, Darnell, thanks for tuning in. How was your Masters weekend? Hope you had a lot of Scotty Scheffler, Rory, the Cam Smith that we're talking about now. because I took a beating. I felt like I was right on a lot of things, but it just wasn't a good weekend for me. The guys that I had just kind of faded on Saturday and Sunday. It happens. I had several 6 of 6 lineups, and yet I had no Scheffler in any of those 6 of 6s. I had no Cam Smith in any of those 6 of 6s. So it is what it is. Masters sucked. Peters killed me. Yeah, I wasn't on Thomas Peters. Didn't like what I had seen from him. One lineup. See, my guys that hurt me, like Max Homa, I was quite high on Max Homa. He faded on the weekend. I felt like an absolute genius Thursday. I was all over Joaquin Niemann. He's the first round leader. I'm thinking, all right, here we go. And then, well, they had to play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, but anyway, hope your weekend was at least enjoyable watching the Masters, if not for DFS purposes. But coming back to the RBC Heritage, where we are this week, so you've seen a whole lot of overlap here. Cameron Smith on short courses, Pete Dye courses. Russell Henley, I believe he was on the short the short course, and now the wind. Tagala, first time we've talked about him. So interesting stuff here. And then the last thing I want to do on this tab in Fantasy National, again, this is just for the calendar year. So not a lot of data, but enough, considering there are 39 rounds from Brian Stewart, Sahith Theegala, and whatnot. So we do have enough data to look at an overview or a broad perspective, but we'd certainly have to add if we are going narrow in our focus. But we didn't look at strokes gained approach last night at all. We kind of went into some specifics regarding what we saw in the 2021 leaderboard. But a look at your top strokes gained approach players since the start of the calendar year. Those players are Russell Henley, Luke Donald, Justin Thomas, Patton Kizzire, Shane Lowry, Russell Knox, Adam Hadwin, Eric Van Rooyen, Joaquin Niemann, and Alex Noren. So again, a whole lot of overlap here. Russell Henley's seemingly been on 3 or 4 of the filters. Justin Thomas, no surprise, he's one of the best players in the world for a reason. Shane Lowry has now been popping on 2 or 3 of the filters. Niemann. Which reminds me, Darnell, if you haven't seen it yet, Abraham Answer has withdrawn. Joseph Bramlett replaces him in the field. So I don't know if you had any wagers or were constructing any lineups already with Abraham Answer. You need to change course on that if you were. He is not in the tournament this week. That is the only field change that I am aware of. If you are aware of others, by all means, drop it in chat or put it in comment. I would appreciate it. The community would appreciate it. That's the only one I have seen today. So there's a look at the strokes gained approach players here in the past 4 months or whatever since the beginning of the calendar year. I think that's going to probably, well, I don't know. Let's take a look at strokes gained approach in the wind just to kind of see what players can at least play their irons in the wind. So your top strokes gained approach players in the wind since the beginning of the calendar year: Joaquin Niemann, Justin Thomas, Daniel Berger, Patton Kizzire, Michael Thompson, Camilo Villegas, Russell Knox, Andrew Putnam, Cam Smith, and Brendan Todd. So again, quite a bit of overlap from the strokes gained total view. Joaquin Niemann first in the wind, first in approach. Justin Thomas second and second. Villegas 8th and 6th. Smith 4th and 9th. So the one person that rises here is Michael Thompson. It's only 5 rounds, but he has not played well in the wind, or at least not upper echelon, but his irons have been good in the wind, so he has not putt well in the wind for what that's worth, and he's not been good off the tee in the wind for what that's worth. So there is a look at some strokes gained approach numbers. I don't think we're going to hit too much more here. Short game putting. I talked last night a couple of times about doing some research and Fantasy National has decided not to work anymore. I did some research today regarding if the putting was a huge factor leading up to the RBC Heritage. And for some guys it was, and some guys it wasn't. I wish that wasn't a cop-out or an easy answer, but it's simply the answer. Somebody like, who was it? In 2013 or 14, I think Matt Kuchar was stellar the entire calendar year leading up to the RBC Heritage when he won. Then you have others. Well, I can check over here. Just give me 1 second. Then you have others, for example, like Satoshi Kodaira in 2018. He lost, 2 strokes total in putting leading up to the RBC Heritage. You have the winner in 2015. Don't remember who that is off the top of my head. He only gained strokes putting in 1 tournament leading up to the Heritage. So it's kind of hit and miss. It does not appear that a hot putter coming in is mandatory. And at the same time, there have been guys that are good on Bermuda win, and there have been guys traditionally bad on Bermuda that have won. So again, I don't think there's going to be too much to do with putting this week. It was pretty easy last week at the Masters to put some 3-putt avoidance in the final data model. I was pretty confident that that was going to be a factor. It was. It generally is there at Augusta National. So that is going to be it for a look in the kind of umbrella stat terms. Let's start digging in a little bit, and we're going to look at birdies and bogeys here. And the first initial reaction, at least from last night, the 2021 birdies and bogeys looked like it was birdies gained, and I feel like that has been true throughout the tournament leading back to 2017. Again, I don't go any further back than 2017. Guys change, courses get renovated here and there. So, but sorting just on the birdies gained from last year's Heritage, you see such a strong correlation here. You don't have a clunker, you don't even have really a middling finish until Will Zalatoris down here. What's this, maybe 15th? And then after him, you've got even more high finishes down here. Before you find somebody to miss the cut, you have to scroll down to Tommy Fleetwood and JT Poston that were positive in the birdies. And they really weren't that bad in the bogeys. Now, JT Poston couldn't avoid a double to save his life, apparently. But it's surprising to see Tommy Fleetwood not bad in the bogeys, and yet he missed the cut. So he was probably either right on the cut line, or he just did not have enough birdies. That's kind of weird to see. But you see such, that's damn strong correlation. So birdies gained. Bogeys, fairly strong, it seems like, up here. Absolutely. But then you already have 2 missed cuts, 2 more missed cuts here. And you would say, Nick, obviously, if you're going to be high on the leaderboard, you're getting birdies and avoiding bogeys. Yes, that's true, but not to the level of extent this is. This is some of the stronger I have seen. And I just showed the bogeys. You have missed cuts up here. In the upper echelon of the bogeys avoided. So it's not always the case. But seeing such a strong correlation here on birdies gained, we're going to look at birdies gained this week. Be curious to hear from you in the comments or chat. Do you think it should just be birdies gained, just in a flat overall view? Do you think it should be birdies are better on short courses? I'm not going to do birdies are better because there's not a lot of eagles here. Should it be birdies gained on short courses? Should it be birdies gained on Pete Dye courses? Be interested to hear your take on it. So there's a look at birdies and bogeys from last year, and it's a lot more of the same. We'll come to 2020. You can see here such strong correlation here. You've already got 3, maybe 4. We'll go with the top 20 conveniently because of ties. So the top 20, you have 3 that were negative in bogeys avoided, all of them positive in birdies gained. You sort by birdies, a lot more of the same strong correlation here. So birdies was the prevalent factor in 2020. Now 2019 was the outlier, and we saw that in the Excel portion that I did show last night. Bogeys was the more important. Let's do the top 24 for ties. So you do only have 2 in the birdies gained that were negative, but every single one was positive and bogeys avoided. So again, like I said, this is the outlier. Still really strong correlation here in the birdies, but even more so in the bogeys. But now that I sort it, I mean, you have a 54th and a 41st up here, pretty high when you sort by bogeys avoided, whereas birdies gained, I mean, you don't have that 41st and 54 till down here. So interesting. You can argue that birdies gained is still even more important than bogeys avoided in 2019 as well. But there's a look at that tab in Fantasy National, the birdies gained. So let's go ahead and move to that. Again, I mentioned that I'm not going to do any birdies or better. There's just not a lot of eagles on this course. You do have a couple of holes that yield it, but the third par 5, the one on the back 9, it is not an eagle chance, and it's a decent birdie chance, but that's not a given either. So not all the par 5s are gettable here at Harbortown. So let's just take a look at birdies gained, an overall just pure view, no filters, at least I don't think so. No, so no filters. These are your top birdies gained players since the beginning of the calendar year. Cam Smith, Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, Cameron Young, I think it's the first time we've said him tonight. Patrick Cantlay, Charles Howell III, first time we've said him. DJ, first time we've said him. Kevin Kisner, Bo Hostler, and Billy Horschel. Joaquin Niemann just outside the top 10 here. Again, not a lot of surprise here. Cam Smith, Justin Thomas seemingly competing in every single tournament. Henley's been up here quite a bit. But this is the first time we're seeing Cameron Young. It's the first time we're seeing Charles Howell, Dustin Johnson. Now, DJ, for as much as this is a strategic course, point A to point B and whatnot, he does not get enough credit for playing these style of courses well. He plays this event generally pretty darn well. So make sure you consider Dustin Johnson. Don't lean on just the narrative of you have to be a short hitter to succeed here, because that's not the case. But there's a look at birdies are better, or birdies gained. I keep saying birdies are better. Birdies gained this since the beginning of the calendar season. I'm going to look at birdies gained on Pete Dye courses. And again, we're going to have to go back and set the beginning date to, well, I didn't want that. Well, shoot. We're going to come back to 2021, April the 19th. So back to last year's RBC Heritage on Pete Dye courses, so 14 rounds. Your top birdies gained players on Pete Dye courses since last year's RBC Heritage. Cam Smith, again, no surprise, the winner at the Players, TBC Sawgrass, and Pete Dye Design. So the top performer, Cam Smith. Then you have Andrew Putnam, Aaron Wise, Terrell Hatton, DJ, Adam Shank, Sepp Straka, Joel Damon, Charlie Hoffman, and Kevin Struman. So these are some brand new names. Let's see. I know Cameron Smith was up there in the strokes gained total for Pete Dye. I'm trying to think of the others that were up there. Maybe Terrell Hatton was up there as well. I know DJ was up there, if not in the top 10, very close to it. But there are a lot of brand new names here. Andrew Putnam, Aaron Wise. Sepp Straka was up there for the Bermuda putting due to his win at the Valspar. But this is the only other time we've seen him so far. Adam Shank, Charlie Hoffman, Kevin Struman. So interesting names here. That is birdies gained on Pete Dye Designs. There's no harm in looking at birdies gained on short courses. And we're going to bring that back in, of course, to the calendar year. We have enough short courses to do that. So your top birdies gained players on short courses since the beginning of the calendar year. You've got Tom Hoagie, Lonto Griffin, Hudson Swafford, Adam Svensson, Patrick Cantlay, Charles Howell, Sepp Straka, Harold Varner III, Denny McCarthy, Russell Henley. So a lot of the same overlap. Tom Hoagie, again, his win at Pebble Beach makes a whole lot of sense for gaining the birdies. Trying to think of other players that were there in strokes gained total short. I believe Cantley was there. I believe Straka was there. Denny McCarthy, I know, was there. Henley, I know, was there. It's quite a bit more overlap here on the short course birdies than there is on the Pete Dye birdies gained. So good stuff there. I think that'll be it for this tab. So I'm going to move on to fairways and greens, and let's take a look here the past couple of years at the RBC Heritage. I mentioned last night that this course generally doesn't demand distance, and normally it doesn't. But last year, distance was a decent little factor. You had the beginning or the top players in distance gained missed the cut, and you didn't have a whole lot of high-end finishes. But if you sort by the leaderboard, the top, 12 of the top 13 were at least positive in distance gained to the field. So it's not nothing, but it's still, this is a bit deceiving is how I'll say it. It is mildly more important than what you think. Because I was even surprised seeing how much green there was at the top of the leaderboard last year in distance. This does not seem like it would be a course that relies on distance at all. So that was 2021. 2020 distance, yeah, see, while you had some decently high numbers, Brooks, JT, Bryson, you've got a whole lot more in the red in 2020. And then 2019, the year CT Pan won, I don't believe there was much green there at all. Cantley was pretty high. He actually might have been the highest at 68. No, so he was about 6th. Okay. So yeah, last year was a bit of an anomaly in terms of driving distance and its importance. We are on this tab. So I just wanted to point that out because we had a little bit of a, I don't want to say a segment, but a little bit of pause and discussion on that. But I came away with the conclusion that perhaps it was good drives gained that was the most important last night, only because when you sort on good drives, you've got a lot of high-end finishes here. Now you do have, I will say, a middling and a clunker here, but then some much more higher finishes right below them in the good drives gained leaderboard. When you sort on greens, it looks like the same, but I want you to see like the middling here, clunker there, clunker from Rory Sabatini here. You have missed cuts down here where you didn't have missed cuts in the good drives gained for a little while. Kyle Stanley about the same, I guess. I just didn't go down this far. So I still think it's good drives gained, at least in terms of importance here at Harbortown, but it might not be an important factor at all overall. So we're going to definitely, compare and contrast that in the Excel portion against other courses. In 2020, let's see here. This is the top 20 year. You've got 3 here that are negative in good drives, quite a few more in greens. The problem is that the good drives gained are much higher in the negatives than they are in the greens. So it probably evens out, to be honest. Let's see if we sort good drives. Yeah, some more of the same. Like you don't have a miscut until, the players down here, Ryan Moore and such, but you don't have a whole lot of extremely high top end finishes. Yes, Abraham Answer was a runner up last year. Top 10s from Brooks and Bryson. But you got a whole lot of, kind of top 20s, top 30s, some middling finishes in here. So lukewarm correlation, I would say. And the greens, I would argue, is a bit stronger, even though you have a miscut higher. You have your runner-up, a top 20, top 10, top 5, top 25. You don't have a whole lot of clunkers, and you don't have nearly as many middling finishes. So it looks like greens was a bit more important in 2020. And we'll see 2019 just for compare and contrast, see if we can break the tie, so to say. Let's do a little, because of the ties, top 24 here. Good drives gained. I mean, CT Pan was your winner, and apparently didn't hit a fairway or a green, really. Apparently didn't hit a fairway all week. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 very, very high negatives in the good drives gained. Whereas you have the same amount in greens, but not nearly as high of numbers. So maybe it is greens. Maybe 2021 good drives gained is a bit of an outlier. Again, we'll examine that in the Excel portion, but I think it's fairly close, but it looks like it's a bit more greens than good drives gained, which makes a lot of sense. These are tiny, tiny greens. I believe these are the second second smallest greens on tour behind Pebble Beach, I think. I know they're close to them. So greens in regulation gained, let's see, on short courses, yeah, that's fine. So greens in regulation on short courses, your top players since the start of the calendar year: Adam Hadwin, Russell Knox, Corey Connors, Russell Henley, Adam Svensson, Lucas Glover, Joel Damon, Shane Lowry, Daniel Berger, and Sepp Straka. Okay, a lot more of the same overlap. This is the first time we've said Lucas Glover. Svensson's been there on a lot of the short course metrics. Henley, Daniel Berger, Shane Lowry, although they only have one tournament, so be mindful of that. Russell Knox, 3 tournaments, and good on the greens and regulation in terms on short courses. I don't know how much value there would be in doing Pete Dye or overall. I don't get the sense that greens or good drives, I don't get the sense that a lot of these things are important around here. Actually, you know what? Just due to the sheer amount of, sheer fact that the greens are small, let's take a look at scrambling. And we saw that last night in the initial research show in the course breakdown. The scrambling percentage is quite a bit higher here than the average tour event. So let's take a look at scrambling gained. We're over here. So your top scramblers, I'm going to remove the short course filter. So your top scramblers since the start of the calendar year. Those players are Daniel Berger, Kevin Streelman, Matt Fitzpatrick, Matt Kuchar, Michael Thompson, Mito Pereira, Bo Hostler, Sepp Straka, William McGirt, now there's a name, and Cameron Young. All right. Interesting. I'm not doing any scoring relative to par because lately, I say lately, the past 2 or 3 years or so, the course has been getting easier. I'll bring up the historic conditions for you all. So all last year it played to average. 2020 it was pretty darn easy. But before 2020, you never saw a easy round at the Heritage. It was all average and difficult, minus this one round in 2015 apparently. But the past couple of years, it's starting to get easier. We've seen that in the cut line. It has drastically dropped the past 2 or 3 years. The winning scores have been much, much higher in the past couple of years. So I'm not comfortable putting any kind of difficulty filter this week, because a lot of times if I'm looking at scrambling, I'll do scrambling on difficult courses since that's what makes sense. But scrambling on this course might warrant some attention just due to the small greens. So I think it was decent observation there, or at least to take a look at scrambling on this course. I wish there was a scrambling on small greens, and we just don't have that. So there's that. I think that's probably going to be the only thing we take a big long look at on this tab. Again, I just don't feel like greens in regulation are a big deal. Good drives gained looked like they had lost their appeal that I thought they might have from last night's show. So yeah, maybe scrambling gained from this tab, but other than that, I don't see much. Let's move to the par 3s, 4s, and 5s. We'll hit proximity last. So let's move to par 3s. And we talked quite a bit last night about how important one specific range of par 3s is here at Harbor Town. So if you weren't here for last night's show, I asked that you go and watch that after you check out live here. But there are 3 holes of the 4. 3 of the 4 par 3s at Harbor Town measure in this range here. You have a 192, a 195, and a 196. So they're pushing this bucket. But there is one par 3 that falls in this bucket. It's at 200 yards. So while some of these will push into here when they move tees and pins and whatnot, you better believe that the 200 will be pushed into here when they move tees and pin positions and all. So I think it would be I don't think it'd be a stretch, is how I'll phrase it. I don't think it'll be a stretch to see a day, maybe even 2, where all 4 par 3s are in this bucket here, on the 175 to 200. And you see here, like the leaders in the 150 to 175, the leaders were at 2.0. You're not gaining a whole lot when some of the par 3s measure to this, and at the same wavelength. You're not gaining a whole lot at the 200 to 225. You're only gaining 1.3. Your leaders, however, in the 175 to 200 are gaining 5 and 4, some of 3. So I'm going to put all of my emphasis par 3 wise at Harbor Town in the 175 to 200. So we just saw last night also in the course breakdown that par 3s just really lost their importance as you climbed the leaderboard. Top 10s, they were fairly close to par 4s and behind par 5s. Top 5s, they were still relatively close to the par 4s, and then the winners, they dropped in importance quite a bit. So there's 2021. Let's look at 2020 par 3s. You've got, in fact, your winner, Webb Simpson, was a bit negative. Joaquin Niemann was a bit negative. But, see, you take out the 2 miscuts here. You got Perez and Bronson Burgoon, who were pretty good at that range. You take those 2 out, you've got a whole slew of high-end finishes here. So I would tend to think 2020 might be an outlier. You still do have some pretty decent performances in the par 3, but look here, you got a 4.6 in total par 3s, 3.6 of it from that range there, 2.6, all of it in that one, 2.6, all of it in that one. So I still think it's 175 to 200. Let's go to 2019 just to see. 175 to 200. Yeah. Okay. 4 3s. If there is a length of par 4, if there is a length of par 3, I think it's going to be this one. And we'll confirm it in Microsoft Excel, but 2021 was strong, and 2020 and 2019 have kind of fallen off in importance. I'm going to check 2018 just to make sure I'm looking at things. You have red here too. So I just want you to see, like, there's the leader here, 4.6, whereas the leaders and others, 2, 1.2, 0.9. That's why I feel that 175 to 200 is still the most important, because you're gaining more in that range of par 3s than the others when you play them well. They might not lead to the highest of high leaderboard success, but a lot of your strokes gained par 3 total comes from that bucket. So in that line of thinking, again, since the start of the calendar year 2022, your top performers from 175 to 200 yards par 3 wise, it is Tom Hoge, Sepp Straka, Cam Smith, Adam Svensson, Joaquin Neiman, Alex Noren, Matt Kuchar, Russell Knox, Shane Lowry, Nate Lashley, and Russell Henley. So a lot more overlap here. We're starting to see Neiman. Smith's been there on seemingly everything. Straka's starting to be there. Hoagie, anything short related, whether it's short course, short-ish irons, par threes. I mean, you look here, Tom Hoagie in par threes alone, first in total, first at the length at Harbor Town, first at the 200 to 225 when it plays to that. Anything par three related, Tom Hoagie's your man. Let's see. Other names here, Matt Kuchar, former champion here at Harbor Town. Knox has been popping, Lowry's been popping. So good stuff there on the par threes. Let's move to par fours. And I mentioned last night that I think I found a range of par fours that matter the most here. And I think it is the 400 to 450. I mean, you see here again just how important the par fours are in general. I still am a big believer that it is probably the most or second most important statistic in golf, arguably with strokes gained approach. But 400, 450, kind of like the 175 to 200, you see how much, when you're playing them well, how many strokes you gained. 6, 5, 4s, whereas you put that up against the others here, 2.8, 2.7, 5.1 to be fair out to 450 to 500. So in terms of the amount of par fours that are in each bucket, you got one that's drivable, the par 4 ninth. I don't think a lot of players try to drive that green, but it is drivable. Then you have one in the 350 to 400, 5 here, and 4 here. So when you look at last year's leaderboard, you have about the same in terms of numbers in regarding to negatives. You have 2 players that are negative from the 400 to 450. You have 4 in the 450 to 500. So while these numbers, or while there's more of them, these numbers aren't near the -2. Yeah, it looks like they're fairly close. You've got some decent correlation here. You got a bin on miscut, fairly high. 450 to 500. Patrick Cantley's miscut around the same area. So it looks like they're about the same last year. 2020. Par 4s. Let's see. Yeah, now you're starting to see how the 400 to 450 kind of start gaining their advantage, or starting to be more important in previous years. You do have a few negatives here, but look at the negatives that are up here close to the top of the leaderboard, or close to winning, I should say. Now, the numbers are very small. So if we sort, you've got, this is pretty darn strong, minus Danny Lee's clunker right here, which he played this length of par 4 very well. I mean, just some strong correlation. You got a top 5, 2 top 20s, winner, top 5, 10, 10, 10, 2 25s. That's pretty darn strong. 450 to 500, not as strong. Top 25, top, maybe middling, clunker, winner, top 5, top 10, but you have a miscut pretty high up there. So 400 to 450 at least looks like it's been more important the previous 2 years. 2019, last one we'll check. Boy, I realize we've been going for a little bit. So, 400 to 450, yeah, again, just because of ties, top 24. You've got 3 here in the 400 to 450, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the 450 to 500. So I don't think these are, negligent or not important at all. I just think 400 450 is the most important range here at Harbor Town. So let's take a quick look at the 400 450. So your top performers since the start of the calendar year in terms of par 4 performance from 400 to 450 yards. Those players are Brian Harmon, Cameron Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, Justin Thomas, Adam Long, Corey Connors, Patton Kazire, Shane Lowry, Russell Knox, and Mito Pereira. So, all right. Yep. I wish I could give you a bunch of analysis. It is kind of is. It is what it kind of is. The numbers are. I'm going to skip the par fives, and I'm going to go straight into proximity because I'm looking at the time, and there's quite a bit in Excel I want to show you all as well. Proximity, we saw in the course breakdown. I keep jumping tabs. I'm sorry. In the course breakdown, we saw that there are a majority of approach shots from 150 to 175 and 175 to 200, but I thought that maybe the 175 to 200 was more important just due to their relative numbers in terms of the amount versus the average tour event. So the average tour event 17 and a half. 175 to 200 here at Harbor Town is 24 and some change. So a little bit more than 7% more common approach shot than the average tour event here at Harbor Town comes from 175 to 200. So because of that, I did quite a bit of research, admittedly saying that proximity is my kind of kryptonite. It is the one stat that I'm the least comfortable with looking at from an analyst's perspective. But proximity gained 175 to 200, pretty darn strong last year. You got a couple of high-end finishes here, like Stuart Sink, Griot, Chris Kirk. They all top 10'd. Gim and Streelman were middling. Daniel Berger, top 15. That's some of the stronger correlation I've seen in 175 to 200s, and just the sheer amount of green up here in the top portion of the leaderboard. 2020, proximity. Again, a whole lot more green. Now, JT Poston was god-awful from that proximity in 2020 and still top 10. But you still have a lot of green here. 2019, more of the same. Yeah, just a whole lot of green. Some of it high green, like JT Poston again, was really good at that length the previous year in 2019. So that's why I think 175 to 200 is going to be a very integral part of success here at Harbor Town. So your top performers on approach shots from 175 to 200 yards since the start of the calendar year: Nate Lashley, Tom Hoagie, Joaquin Neiman, Adam Hadwin, Sepp Straka, Cam Smith, Sahith Tagala, Danny Willett, Ricky Fowler, and Justin Thomas are your top 10. I skipped over Answer because, again, he has withdrawn. So there is a look at what I have been studying in Fantasy National today, and we'll continue to do so tomorrow. Let's move to Microsoft Excel very, very quickly. Bring up the, wrong thing. Transition. Simon says transition. There we go. Bring up the color-coded performance chart. Again, this is performance specifically at Harbor Town since 2017. Don't go back any further than 2017 for the reasons I've mentioned. We'll take a quick look here. So some of the players that have traditionally played Harbor Town well: Webb Simpson, your winner in 2020, 5 for 5, average of a top 10. Berger 3 for 3, Poulter 5 for 5, DJ 4 for 4, Kuchar, former champion, I think in 2015. Cantley's 3 for 4, Noren. So those are some of the guys that have played it often, 3 times, and have had quite a bit of success. You come down here at the other end of the spectrum, guys that have not played this well, that have played it, often. Scott Brown 0 for 5, Andrew Putnam 0 for 3, Adam Long 0 for 3. Lahiri 1 for 4, Davis Love III 1 for 4, Jim Herman 1 for 4. So a lot of red down here. The guys, for whatever reason, haven't played this course very well. So let's take a look at some specific metrics and see who has done well at those metrics that we have kind of focused on tonight. First thing I want to do, I always do, I just want to look at strokes gained approach. Who has hit their irons well here at Harbor Town. So your leader, Joaquin Neiman, only one time. Don't discount it, but don't put a whole lot of stock into it either. It's only one tournament. Things can change from one year to the next. Matthew Neesmith, always a good iron player. Grillo has hit his irons well here. Looks like he's been doing Emiliano Grillo things. Good off the tee, very good with the irons. Chipping is, this is actually high for Emiliano Grillo, and he can't make a fucking putt. That's Emiliano Grillo. Webb Simpson, you would expect. Stuart Sink, last year's winner, your defending champion. Colin Morikawa, 2 for 2. Again, doing Colin Morikawa things. Off the tee, approach, can't make a putt. Luke List, same thing. Not as high on off the tee as you would think. Hitting his irons great. Can't make a fucking putt. So there you go. There's a look at some of the top performers in strokes gained approach. Let's look at birdies. Want to take a look at birdies gained. No, not eagles. Birdies gained. We saw that was seemingly the more important between birdies and bogeys. So top birdies here at Harbor Town. Yeah, Cam Davis, Gim, and Neiman. All of these are just one time. So take it a little bit of a grain of salt. DJ, 4 for 4. Ian Poulter, Daniel Berger, Webb Simpson, Alex Noren. He popped on a few filters. He's 3 for 3. Gets his birdies in bunches here. Streelman, Harmon, Lowry, Fitzpatrick. All right. Cantley. So these are some of the names that we started to see on a lot of the filters around that tab and onward. Let's see. Definitely want to look at par 3s, 175 to 200. I believe that's pretty close. Yeah. So your top performers at that length of par 3 here at Harbor Town. Grillo again. Brant Snedeker, 4 for 5 here at Harbor Town. Has played the par 3s extremely well. Harmon again. Henley, although he's only 2 for 4, but his 2 cuts made have been very, very high, considering he's got 2 missed cuts and still averages inside the top 50. So that's interesting to see. Webb Simpson again. Alex Noren again. There's JT Poston. Cantley. So good stuff there. Let's take a look at par 4s and 400, 450. I'm just going to sort on the par 4s and see if we can find commonalities between the two on players. Top par 4 performers. Again, it's just one round, but Neiman and total par 4 and the range of par 4. There's Berger, there's Kuchar and Simpson. Kuchar and Simpson, former champions. Patrick Cantley is good on both. DJ, not necessarily great at the length of the par 4, but fantastic at just par 4s. Poston, Joel Damon popped on one of the filters, I remember. He's good at both of the par 4s. Dylan Fratelli, there's a name. He's good in the par 4s in general, but terrible at the ones that are most prominent here. But he's good at so that's where he's probably making it up. He's making it up on the 4 par 4s from 450 to 500, not the 5 in here. There's Michael Thompson, Shane Lowry, Brian Harmon again. So some of these names are starting to overlap quite a bit. Guys who have played this event well. There's Kevin Streelman. Then finally, I'm going to skip par 5s. They will be in the final mixed condition model. It's the most important par or stroke gain by hole by par. I'm just trying to get through this and show you what I think are the most important metrics. And finally, we're going to look at proximity 175 to 200 performance here, specifically at Harbor Town. I thought we were. There we go. So proximity 175 to 200. Yeah, you can see that. Doug Gim, Neiman, Neesmith again. Like Neesmith's also, he's twice, but Norlander was very good from that range, but missed the cut in his one try. Justin Thomas only one time. So you got to come down to Cantley here before you get some players that have played it enough to give it a whole lot of credence. So Cantley, Henley, Grillo again, Hudson Swafford, 1 for 3. That has been good from this length of approach shot. There's Webb again. There's Joel Damon. Good story here. And Morgan Hoffman playing this week. he has a medical condition. I can't remember what it is exactly. He is on his final start, I believe, on a major medical. Good story there. Not unlike the winner earlier this year on his final major medical. Now it's escaping me who it was. But a good story there. Kevin Streelman, Harry Higgs, 2 for 2, but an average of 56. There's Colin Morikawa. Tommy Fleetwood, 1 for 2. Hadwin, 3 for 4. So that is a look at some course-specific performance by the players in the field. I am going to sort by finish and smallest to largest. I wanted to get into comparison course stuff. Not going to be able to do that tonight. I apologize. I did cover it a little bit in the initial research show. So if you want to see some of that, please go check that video out. Has some good stuff in it too. But thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate the support. Darnell, thanks for jumping in chat like you always do. Hopefully your all's week has started off well. Let me know in the comments. Again, was the intro background distracting? What are you wanting to see, or who are some of your pivots and fades and whatnot for DFS? What kind of wagers are you thinking about this week? Who are you thinking about wagering? Do you think there will be a Masters hangover for some of these players? And then, if you want to put a little baseball talk into the comments as well, I'm here for that as well. So, for all of the wagers you have made so far at the Heritage this week, for all the wagers you're thinking about making at the Heritage this week, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.